In 1943, a widow sat alone in Siberia. She had nothing left. Her husband, killed in action. Her home, gone. Her entire former life, erased by a war she had no say in starting. So she sold everything she owned. Most people buy flowers after losing someone. Maria bought a tank, and then she wrote directly to Stalin. Not a petition, not a plea, a request. Build me a tank, and let me drive it into battle myself. Stalin said yes. This is the story of Maria Octraiskaya, the woman they called the fighting girlfriend, and what happened when grief stopped being a feeling and became a weapon. To understand what Maria became, you first need to understand what she lost. It's 1925. Maria is 20 years old. She has just met a Soviet army cadet named Ilya. Sharp uniform, confident smile. The kind of man who fills a room just by walking into it. They married quickly, moved to Kiev, built something, and Maria, from the very beginning, was not content to just be a military wife. She trained as an army nurse. She joined the Military Wives Council. She used to say, and this is a real quote, "Marry a serviceman and you serve in the army." That wasn't a motto. That was how she lived. 14 years. Getting better every year. Ilya was promoted to officer. They had photographs on every wall. They had a life. And then 1941 happened. And in 3 months, every photograph came down. The Germans launched Operation Barbarossa, a full-scale invasion eastward. Ilya, now an officer, was sent to the front lines. Maria was evacuated to Siberia. She waited. Weeks, months, 2 years. Nothing. Just silence. And then the letter arrived. Ilya had been killed at the very outbreak of the war, defending Kiev. The news had taken 2 years to find her. She sat with that letter for a long time. And then she did something no one expected. Not grief, not a breakdown. Something much quieter and much more dangerous. That night, Maria sat alone. She had a photograph of Ilya on the table. She thought about writing the letter, and she almost didn't. She was 38 years old, a nurse, a widow, in Siberia. Who was she to ask Stalin for a tank? She picked up the pen, she put it back down, she picked it up again, and she wrote, "My husband was killed defending our country. I am donating my personal savings to build a T-34 tank. I request that when it is complete, I be the one to drive it." She sold everything. Her furniture, gone. Her jewelry, gone. Every possession left from their life together. Every ruble donated to the Red Army. With that letter attached, now. In 1943, Soviet Union, women didn't drive tanks. They certainly didn't write to Stalin asking him to build one. Stalin said yes, 5 months of tank school. She was the oldest person there. The only woman. And for the first 2 weeks, the worst driver in the program. The instructor told her in front of everyone, "You will get your crew killed." She said nothing. She went back to the barracks. She studied the manual until 2 in the morning. She was back in the seat at dawn. 5 months later, she graduated. And when her tank was finally delivered, the one built with the money from her furniture, her jewelry, her entire former life, she walked up to it, put her hand on the armor, and had 4 words painted on the turret. Fighting girlfriend. In Russian, Boyevaya Podrushka. Her crew, when they first met her, 3 young men, none older than 24, looked at their new commander, a 38-year-old woman who used to be a nurse. One of them, his name was Stepan, leaned over to the others and whispered, "We are going to die." He was wrong, but not for the reasons he expected. First deployment, crew silent, tense. Maria drove with a precision none of them had seen before. Calm hands, calm voice.
"Maria, push forward now!"
She moved the tank through a German machine gun line like she had done it 100 times. One position, down, then another, and then a shell hit the treads. The tank stopped, disabled, in the middle of an active battlefield. Stepan looked at Maria. "Commander, we wait for support." Maria was already opening the hatch. The Germans saw her. They opened fire. She crouched beside the tread and started working. Hands moving fast, head down, no hesitation. 2 minutes later, she climbed back in, started the engine, drove away. The crew sat in silence for a long time. Nobody said anything about what they had seen. After the battle, Maria was promoted to sergeant. That night, Stepan wrote in his diary, "She is not what I expected. I don't know what she is." The crew had changed. They watched Maria differently now, not with skepticism, with something closer to awe. But this night, awe was not enough. First shell hit close enough to send fragments through the radio antenna, static, then silence. They were cut off. No contact with brigade command, no coordinates from artillery, no way to know where the German line ended and Soviet territory began. Then, smoke.
Smoke from the
Not
panel.
from outside,
Check the
from
circuit.
inside. A fragment had punched through the lower hull. Something was burning. One of the crew
We
started
push
moving toward the
forward.
hatch.
Do it
"Stay in
now.
your position." She put it out. Bare hands, no hesitation. The crew looked at each other. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. And then, a shell took out the left tread. The tank stopped. Smoke still in the air. No radio. Surrounded by darkness. This time, before Maria could speak, Stepan was already moving.
I'll go with you.
Together in the dark, under fire with no radio and no backup, they fixed the tread. Then Maria climbed back into the driver's seat. No radio, no brigade coordinates, just a compass, a map, and 3 months of experience reading the shape of Soviet terrain. She drove them out, not back to base on a signal, back to base on instinct. When they crossed the Soviet line, the crew was silent for a long moment. Then one of them started laughing. The kind of laugh that happens after your body realizes it forgot to be afraid. They were her crew now, completely, without question. The crew had been together 3 months now. They had a rhythm. They had rituals. Stepan always checked the tread bolts before a night battle. Maria always checked the fuel twice. That night, after the fighting girlfriend drove into position, opened fire, took out a line of German defenses one by one, and then the treads. Again. Stepan grabbed her arm. "Commander, don't! I know this area. The Germans are zeroed in on this position. If you go out there..." He couldn't finish the sentence. Maria looked at him, calm, quiet, the same way she had looked at everything since the day she read that letter. "Fix the tread or we don't go home." She opened the hatch. The crew screamed for her to come back. Stepan leaned out, covering her with his rifle. The others rotated the turret, trying to draw fire. And then, fragments. Maria was hit in the head. She fell. They pulled her in. They retreated. She never regained consciousness. 2 months later, she was gone. Stepan survived the war. He lived until 1987. In every interview he ever gave, every letter, every memoir, he came back to the same moment. The night at Krinki. I told her not to go out. She looked at me like I had said something funny. Like the bullets weren't even real to her. Like she had already decided, a long time ago, that she wasn't afraid of dying. Only of doing nothing. Maria Octraiskaya was posthumously awarded the title Hero of the Soviet Union. The highest honor the Soviet state could give. Equivalent to the Medal of Honor. Given to generals. To legendary soldiers. To the greatest warriors in Soviet history. And to a 38-year-old military nurse from Kiev who almost didn't write the letter, who almost talked herself out of it, but picked up the pen anyway. Here's what gets me about Maria's story. She didn't know the state would say yes. She didn't know if she could pass the training when the instructor told her she'd get everyone killed. She didn't know if she could survive combat. She just knew one thing. Her husband was gone, and she was going to do something about it. 3 times her tank was stopped. 3 times she climbed out. The first 2 times, she saved her crew. The third time, her crew couldn't save her. But by then, they were already the soldiers she made them. Grief, when it becomes something cold and clear and purposeful, can drive a 30-ton tank through a war zone. So the next time someone tells you one person can't make a difference, remember Maria. Remember the letter she almost didn't write. Remember the tank she shouldn't have been allowed to drive. Remember the crew that went from "we are going to die" to "I'll go with you." The most powerful weapon in that war wasn't the tank. It was the woman who refused to let her husband die for nothing. If this story hit different, subscribe to Lost Chronicles. Every week, one forgotten story, told the way it deserves to be told.